We're going to be talking about linear modeling today, and one of the biggest ideas on the Common Core regions is the idea of context. So when we're talking about context, we're talking about, hey, what is the question actually about? So having said that, we're going to look at a couple exercises together, and the goal is going to be to model these based on a linear equation and to use those to kind of give us an idea as to what the numbers represent in the context of the question. So if you look at exercise 1, it's talking about a warehouse that's tracking its cardboard boxes. And it says at the beginning of the month they had a supply of 1,275 boxes left, and they used the boxes at a rate of 75 per day. Now, I'm going to actually skip over to part B, which says which of the following would correctly model the number of boxes left. Now, because they're using boxes, that means they're subtracting 75 per day. And because that's a rate, that's going to be our slope. And the amount of boxes they start with, which was 1275, is the y-intercept. Now, that means that our answer for this is going to be 3, which means that n, the number of boxes left, is 1275 minus 75d, and there's 75d because they're using boxes at 75 per day. So for part A, it says how many boxes are left after 10 days. Well, they're using 75 a day. So to find n, it would be 1275 minus 75 times 10. And I could take my calculator, I can type this in. So I got 1275 minus 75 parentheses 10. So the number of boxes I would have would be 525. Now that's part of the idea of linear modeling, is come up with an equation. So now we're going to move on to exercise 2. And they give us an equation right in the middle of the paper right here. Now, the idea is this, is that they give us a description of what the variables represent. So they say the cost in dollars, C, that produce W widgets can be modeled using the function. So how do you interpret the fact that C100 equals 2,300? Well, that's going up to the context of the question. What's the question about? So what that means is, if you look in the parentheses, W is widgets. So you could write this out an interpretation in a sentence. So this means 100 widgets would cost $2,300. And again, what I'm doing is I'm using the variables that they provided me in the question. So they're going to give you those variables. Now for B, it says interpretation of what each of those means. Well, in the case of the slope and the y-intercept, those are based on also the variables that we talked about a minute ago. So $1.25, because it says $1.25 W, the 1.25 represents the cost of each widget. And then because the 2,175 is the y-intercept, that is the starting cost. So this is the price for materials and labor and anything that goes into the creation of each of those widgets. So we start with the cost of 2,175, and then our costs increase by 1.25 for every widget that's produced. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the top of the back page, which is exercise number 3. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to use the context of the question along with some of the skills from the first two assignments to help us come up with an equation of what they mean. So it says biologists estimate that the number of deer in Rhode Island in 2003 was 1,028, and in 2008 it was 1,488. And they want to model it using P for population and T for time since the year 2000. So I'm going to first write down coordinates that I'm going to use for this. And the first thing I'm going to write down is going to be the first point, which would be 3, 1,028. Now you're probably saying to yourself, hey, why isn't it 2003? Well, it says here years since 2000, and 2003 is 3 years after. And then for 2008, it's going to be 8 and 1488. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my rate of change. I'm going to do bottom minus top. I get 5 for the years difference, and then for the other part, I get 460. So I take 460, which is the change in the population, and I divide it by 5. And in this case, I'm going to end up with 92. Now they want us to give us an interpretation of the answer we got in part B. So this change is based on two variables, population and time. So what this means is 92 represents the increase, because it's going up, of deer each year. So we're going up by 92 each year. And then for part D, the last part we're going to look at, it says determine the linear relationship. So for this one, we have our slope, and we have our points that we can use. So I'm going to write down, we're going to use the equation of a line. And I'll use the first point. So we got y minus 1,028, and then we got 92, and then we have x minus 3. So I'll distribute first and get 92x minus 276. And then we'll add the 1,028 to the negative 276. So I'll pull up the calculator for that. So we got negative 276 plus 1,028. So that's going to be a y-intercept of 752. So we have y equals, I'm just going to write that up here, y equals 92x plus 752. So again, as you're looking at these questions, you may have to write equations. And the other thing is that if we did this y equals 92x, we'd actually lose a point. Because see how it says up here they want us to use p and t? So we're going to have to use those as our values. So we got the population based on time would be 92t plus 752. So now that we use the correct variables they want us to use, now we got a final answer.